What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to be trying something a little bit new. I had this fun video idea that I think can be a really cool series if you guys do like it. When you look at brands as a whole, it can sometimes get really overwhelming because of just the sheer volume of product, but also a lot of the products are similar. Some brands have a couple different types of concealers or different blush formulas or different types of eyeshadows. So I wanted to do a video where I showed you guys my preference between those similar products. So I'm calling the series Buy This, but maybe not that. So to kind of kick off this series, I'm gonna be tackling NARS, and I have a couple different sets of products here that I'm gonna be talking about and also putting on my face as well, so you guys can actually see what they look like and what I'm talking about and all of that. I also want to make a little disclaimer. The products that I'm saying not to buy, so to speak, it's just that. It's just a figure of speech. These are not products that I don't like. It's just if I have to choose between the two similar products, the one that I'm saying, you know, buy this or try this is the one that I do prefer. But it's not to say the product is bad in any way unless I say that. And you could also let me know that you enjoyed today's video by hitting the thumbs up button. It really does help me out just to let me know what you guys actually like to see. And of course, subscribe if you want to join the fam. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. First up, let's talk about concealer, because I do feel that NARS is probably the most well-known for their concealer, specifically the Radiant Creamy Concealer. Now, I do really like this product. I've had this in my collection for years. Formula for the Radiant Creamy Concealer is a nice creamy liquid concealer that has a pretty solid medium to full coverage. It's somewhat hydrating. I find it sits nicely underneath the eyes. It's just like a good, pretty basic concealer in my books. Now you may be surprised because on the other side of this concealer showdown is the product that I'm saying that you should pick up instead of this guy, and it is the Soft Matte Complete Concealer. I kind of find that the Soft Matte Complete Concealer is somewhat slept on, especially because the Radiant Creamy Concealer has such like a high ranking within the beauty world. The Soft Matte Concealer tends to have like younger sister vibes, you know? The older sister just gets all the attention. What I really love about the Soft Matte Concealer is that it is a little bit more of a unique formula. I have a lot of other concealers in my collection that are very, very similar to the Radiant Creamy Concealer, but I have nothing else that is anything like this. And I always love a somewhat unique product. When I first saw this concealer, I really didn't think this would even work for me. I do have a drier skin type, and whenever a product has matte in its name, I just automatically assume that it's probably not going to work for my skin type or it's just going to dry me out. But I actually find that this works beautifully, and it's not a drying matte texture whatsoever. I find that this concealer looks very, very skin-like, especially when you do apply it very sparingly. You're really able to buff into the skin to make it look really nice and natural. And it does have this nice soft matte finish, so it doesn't have any like excess shine or anything. So it just blends into the skin super nicely. And also because it has that soft matte finish, it doesn't move, especially when you put this over blemishes. It really, really stays put. And the coverage is also really awesome. So I do think that if you are choosing between the two NARS concealers, the Soft Matte Complete is definitely one that I think would be worth picking up. Let me apply both of these so you can really see what I'm talking about. So let's first go in with the Radiant Creamy. I'm gonna be using the shade Light 2.2, and I'm gonna put it right underneath my eyes on the left-hand side of my face. And I'm gonna blend it out with this brush. This is my Spectrum and Katie Jean Hughes 08 brush. So that's what the concealer looks like blended out. It looks really nice. There's really nothing wrong with it. It covered up my under eyes really, really nicely. But let me show you what the Soft Matte Concealer looks like. So the way that I like to apply this, I like to take a brush and I go in directly with the brush into the pot. And I just pick up a little bit of the product. I don't like to over apply this because I do find that if you do over apply, it can get a little bit drying. And it almost doesn't even look like it's applying a lot of product, but yet it covers up everything pretty much seamlessly. You see how little product I just used and how much that just covered up my under eyes? That is exactly why I love this product. I'm also gonna just pick up a little bit more, put it around my nose. This type of formula to me is like the ideal face concealer because it does have that soft matte finish. It just doesn't slip and slide around on the face. And you don't really need to set it with powder to make it last. With the Radiant Creamy, I do feel that you do need to set it with powder because it is obviously a creamier formula. With this, you really don't. So now let's talk about NARS blush, another very well-known product from the brand. The powder blush is probably one of the biggest cult favorites from the brand, specifically Orgasm. Of course, everybody knows and loves Orgasm. It's a peachy blush with gold shimmer. I shouldn't say that everybody loves it because that's not necessarily true, but it's just a blush shade that's been cemented within the beauty world for a very, very long time. This particular shade is called Torrid, and it's actually one of my personal favorite shades from the line. I actually don't love Orgasm. Not my favorite. I do find that there are a lot of other peachy pink blushes with gold shimmer from other brands and other formulas that I just prefer a lot more. Torrid though is really, really beautiful. So even though the NARS powder blushes are definitely really popular, I do feel that if you are looking at the NARS blushes, I would say to try the Air Matte blush over the powder blushes. So the Air Matte blush is a completely different formula. This is a powder and this is a cream. Most cream blushes tend to be a little bit shinier on the face, a little bit more balm-like, but the Air Matte blushes from NARS are not that at all. They're actually matte, as the name suggests. So it kind of gives more of like a powdered blush effect and not so much like a balmy, dewy cream blush effect. But I overall just prefer this type of formula so much more over the powder blush. To be very honest, I don't think the NARS powder blushes are like anything too mind-blowing. They're a good basic powder blush. There's nothing wrong with them per se, but they're just not special in my opinion. They're just good. When you touch the powder, it doesn't feel like overly soft and smooth. It doesn't apply in like a really buttery, gorgeous way. It just applies nicely like a nice powder blush. But then the formula of the Air Matte blush I find is actually really beautiful. And not just beautiful, but very, very, very different from a lot of the other cream blushes that I've tried. So again, very similar to the reason why I liked the Soft Matte Concealer over the Radiant Creamy Concealer. It's because I have a million powder blushes that pretty much perform exactly like this, but I have maybe one or two cream blushes that perform like this, so it is just a little bit more unique. And if you think about it, this is also slightly more versatile because it is a cream product. You can also put this on your lips as well if you wanted to, whereas you can't do that with a powder blush. So let me show you how both of them apply. Let's first put on the powder blush. So I'm gonna pick up some of the powder blush and put it on this side of my face. So again, the shade is Torrid and it's a really pretty peachy color. It has a little bit of a shimmer in the pan, but it actually doesn't translate on the cheeks. So it looks pretty matte. So that's what it looks like. It's a nice blush. So now let's do the Air Matte blush on this side of my face. I'm going to use the shade Rush, which is my favorite shade in the collection. It's actually kind of similar to Torrid, which is why I matched them up together. It's a nice peachy color, and I'm just going to pick it up with this small little brush. This is a ColourPop F32, and just apply it to my face. What I really like about this formula is it is very, very easy to apply. Cream blushes can sometimes be a little bit finicky, difficult to apply, especially if you're not somebody who's used to applying cream blushes. They're quite sheer and buildable, so you're not gonna get a crazy amount of color when you first apply it, which is nice because that just gives you a little bit more control. And like I said, you could absolutely apply this on your lips if you wanted to. So I'm gonna take a little brush, a little bit of the color, and apply it to my lips, just to show you that you can do that too. So now let's talk highlighters. NARS does have 3 different highlighters in their collection: a powder, a cream, and a liquid. The 2 that I'm going to be kind of putting against one another are the Multiple, which is the cream, and the Glow Booster, which is the liquid. The only thing that makes these 2 guys similar is that they both give the skin a glow, but they're both used in kind of different ways. The Multiple, this one is in the shade Copacabana, is a cream stick, and this is basically just meant to use on the tops of the cheekbones, or you can even put this on your eye or technically on your lips too, but I mean it is a highlighter shade, so you probably wouldn't do that, but this is just meant to pinpoint highlight on the face. The Glow Booster you can also just use as a pinpointed highlighter on the face, but you can also use it underneath your foundation on your entire face if you wanted to give your skin a really nice glow. Now, I actually really do not enjoy the Multiples from NARS. I just don't love the way that it sits on the skin. It looks very, very, very unnatural. It kind of has this like silvery shimmer to it, which I just really don't like, and it's really hard to make this look natural. Obviously, this type of shade in particular is more meant for somebody who has a fairer skin tone. I can definitely wear this in the wintertime. Right now I'm a little bit too tan for it, but even in the wintertime, this is not a product that I would go for just because I don't like the way that this sits on the skin at all. And normally if you are somebody who's going towards like a cream or liquid highlighter, that means you want something that is a little bit more on the natural side, because cream and liquid highlighters are typically that. They're just more natural looking. And so I think if you are looking to pick up a natural looking highlighter from NARS, I wouldn't go towards the multiple. I would definitely go towards the Tinted Glow Booster for so many more reasons. So this is obviously a very, very different type of product. It is a liquid. It comes in a pump. This one is in the shade Calvoya, which is light. And you obviously pick up the shade that best suits your skin tone. This one would work for my particular skin tone. And I just want to show you guys what it looks like when it's blended out. It really blends into the skin pretty perfectly because it is so close to my actual skin color, and it gives the skin such a gorgeous glossy glow that doesn't look unnatural at all because it really just kind of blends perfectly with the skin. And like I said, you can use this in a couple different ways. You can use it pinpointed, you can use it as almost like your primer underneath your foundation. You can mix it in with your foundation if you want to give your foundation a little bit of a glowier effect. So just overall, this is a much, much more versatile product. So let me show you what this looks like on the face. So I'm just gonna pick up some of the product with this fluffy brush and put it right at the top of my cheekbones. So there it is on top of my cheekbones. You can see it gives such a natural, glossy, glowy look. And then we have Copacabana on this side. I'm just gonna kind of pat it and blend it out. And again, it's really not so much about the color of the multiple, it's really just the formula itself. I just don't really like the way it sits on the skin. And I find that all of the shades that I use are mostly glitter, not so much glow. And I just don't prefer that when it comes to a highlighter, and would much prefer something like this instead. So now let's talk single eyeshadows. I actually have a bunch of the NARS single eyeshadows in here. This is just a magnetic palette. I ended up depotting all of them. So all of these shadows on this side are all NARS single eyeshadows. The NARS single eyeshadows are totally fine. They're nice. There's really nothing crazy to say about them. They do have some interesting shades, like these iridescent shades, and the metallic shades are really pretty. The problem that I have with the NARS single eyeshadows, and the reason why I would say to not go with this and to go with something else, which I'll get into, is because of the price. One single eyeshadow is $25 Canadian, and considering you can get a full-on palette for like $30, you can get multiple shades and a really beautiful, nice looking palette for that amount of money. It just doesn't really make that much sense to me. I just feel that if you are spending a premium on one singular eyeshadow, that it needs to be special. There needs to be something about it that you cannot really find in the other things in your collection. And that is why I would say, instead of picking up a single eyeshadow from NARS like these, to pick up one of these guys, which is also technically a single shadow, but it's the Power Chrome. So this is actually a loose eye pigment. Now the Power Chrome is actually a little bit more expensive compared to the powder eyeshadow. It's $37 Canadian, which I know you're like, Jamie, you just said don't spend $25 on a single eyeshadow, but now you're saying spend $37 on a single eyeshadow. But my logic is that the Power Chromes are fun. They're unique. They're a little bit different. They're not a basic powder eyeshadow. This guy is actually one of my favorites. This one is in the shade Shockham, and it is beautiful. Here's what it looks like. It's so reflective. It's literally blinding the camera. The texture of this product is also so different than anything else that I have. It's almost foil-like. It's quite chunky, like when you first pick it up, but when you actually start to kind of buff it into the skin, it creates such an insane and intense effect. I mean, look at that. It's absolutely beautiful. I have two more of these in my collection. I have this gorgeous blue called Isla Morada, and then I also have this kind of like a bronzy brown shade, but the name rubbed off, unfortunately, but it's also absolutely stunning. I just feel that if you are wanting to spend some money on like one single really intense, gorgeous eyeshadow, I would go with these guys, the Power Chromes. So let me try and give you a good comparison. This is Pattaya, and it's one of the powder metallic eyeshadows. And then I'm going to put this guy on my other eye, and you'll see how much more impactful this one is. Okay, first things first, I'm just going to put some concealer on my lid just to prime them, and so the shadows have something to stick to. Okay, I'm gonna take my finger and I'm going to apply Pattaya with my finger. really get the most impact. And there it is. Okay, and now I'm gonna go in with the Power Chrome on the other eye. And it's a very similar color, but look at how much more impactful this color is. It's like, bam. And if you do want something that's not quite as high impact as this, you want something that is kind of in this vein, I wouldn't go for the single eyeshadows. I would actually just go for the eyeshadow palettes because you just get a much better value. I mean, this palette isn't inexpensive. It's $74 Canadian, but instead of getting one eyeshadow at $25, you get 12 eyeshadows in here, which makes it $6 a shadow. So it's definitely a better value. So that's that on the eyeshadows. Now I'm just gonna very quickly even out my eyeshadow look because I feel like that's the only part of my look that looks very, very different. Okay, let's just quickly apply some mascara. Perfect. So the last product that I want to talk about is a lip product. NARS does have really good selection of lip products. They have a bunch of different formulas and they do have multiple different formulas within the same category. One of those categories is, of course, the liquid lip. So this guy is called the Power Matte Lip Pigments. And when it comes to a liquid lip, this is definitely one of my personal favorites. Generally speaking, I'm not the biggest fan of liquid lipsticks because I just don't like the way that they feel. I don't like a super dry lip. It just doesn't feel good, and so I try to avoid them as much as possible. But liquid lips are really good, especially for really bright and really intense colors, because they just last. They set down on your lips, they don't move. There are obviously a ton of different formulas out there. Some are drier than others. The Power Mattes aren't crazy dry. I actually, like I said, just really do enjoy this formula overall. But recently NARS released a completely new type of liquid lipstick, and it's called the Air Matte Lip Color. So this is also a liquid lip color, but it is pretty different than the Power Matte. So as a formula, this gives the same type of impact as the Power Matte gives. It's very intense color, it lasts really well, but this isn't completely 100% transfer proof like the Power Matte is. So with that little trade-off, you do get a little bit more comfort with this formula. Personally feel that little trade-off with it not being quite as long wearing and maybe needing to reapply it just a little bit sooner than you would have to reapply this is enough for me to say that this is more worth getting over the Power Mattes, just because it is so much more comfortable on the lips. This is such a lightweight formula. It feels like nothing. It does not have any type of drying or tightening sensation, which this guy definitely has. And as somebody who just really doesn't like that at all and tries to avoid it as much as possible, I just love this formula and I really enjoy wearing it. So with that being said, I would say that if you are looking for a long wearing liquid lip formula, I would try the Air Mattes over the Power Mattes. I'm gonna start off first with the Power Matte, and this one is in the shade Funky Town. The texture of the product is also really different. This is much more liquidy, and the Air Matte has more of like a moussey texture. It really is a very good lip color. Like if you are looking for something that's very long wearing, that's really bright, and that is more on the comfortable side when it does come to a liquid lip, this is still really good. So now let me show you the Air Matte. This one's Total Domination. Like I said, formula very different. This has more of like a moussier texture. Gorgeous. I love this color. It's one of my favorite reds. Okay, so here is the Air Matte. It pretty much looks the same. It has that same flat matte finish, but it feels so different. Like this is not tightening up on my lips. It feels like nothing. It feels like I'm wearing a lip balm. But when you rub your lips together, you could feel the product move, which means it's not completely setting down on the lips, which means it's not going to be quite as long wearing, like I said, but it still wears really nicely and it still wears for like a longer amount of time, especially compared to normal lipsticks. So I still feel that this is a better option if comfort when it comes to a lip product is really important to you. All right guys, that is it for today. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this series. Do you enjoy it? Should we do it again? If so, what brand should we do it for? And let me know your thoughts on all the products that I spoke about today. Hit the thumbs up button if you did enjoy today's video, and subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.